What's up, everyone? My name is Matt, and I am so happy that you stopped scrolling for a second and you stopped, and now you're watching this week's episode. You're in for a treat, and we can't wait to get into it. But before we do, I have two challenges for you right now. If you're looking for some encouragement, if you're looking for some direction in your life, go to mosaic.show. There you're going to see tons of past episodes that we have archived there for you. Things on addiction, things on how to find hope and how to find peace and how to deal with loneliness, and on and on and on. There's lots and lots of content there for you to check out. And the second challenge is this. Before you watch this episode any further, click the share button. Go ahead and let everybody know that you're watching Mosaic. Share it on your Facebook or Instagram feed, or shoot out a Twitter post and let people know that you're watching Mosaic. That would help us out a ton, and we would be very, very grateful for that. Now, this week's episode is on integrity, and man, it's a good one. So check this out.
You know, the other day, well, it wasn't really the other day, it's a couple months ago, my wife and I were at Walmart and we bought a whole bunch of stuff, because why bother going to Walmart if you're not gonna buy a bunch of stuff? And we went in the check yourself outline. You know what I'm talking about? Not like look at yourself, but check your own stuff out. You know what I'm talking about? So we went there, we're scanning all of our stuff. We're going through everything, trying to be real careful. But there's a lot of it, and just so you know, I'm not exactly a professional cashier. So anyway, we go on out, get into the car, loading everything there, and look in the bottom of the cart down there in the corner and realize we missed something. And I mean, immediately, what goes through my mind is, okay, that's like $1.29 to pay for that. I just spent a couple $100 here. I've probably spent $10,000 at Walmart over the years. They've made enough money off me. I probably overpaid them a time or two. There are times I bought, vegetables from them and they went rotten too quick, and so they kind of owe me money. And so why, I tell you what, I'll just put this in the car, because by the time I go back inside and say, hey, I forgot to pay for this, and then think I'm not trying to steal something, and then I walk around and I pay for it, I swipe my credit card and all that, they will have lost money on me by that point. And all this runs through my mind in about a third of a second. And then I just stop and I go, hey, Lori. She said, well, I said, hey, I missed that. And she you know what she immediately says? She says, yeah, you need to run back in and pay for it. And I didn't even deliberate over it, because, it takes 10 years to build up integrity, but you can lose your integrity in 10 seconds or less. And I said, yeah, because integrity, and you might want to write this down, because it's something to have. It's a simple definition for integrity. Integrity is very simply this. Integrity is when you behave according to your beliefs. Integrity is when you behave according to your beliefs. It seems kind of obvious, but the first thing that people do before you get into a boat, and you don't even think about this maybe, it's subconscious, but the first thing you think about is, hey, is this boat going to leak? So you put it in the water, and if it starts leaking, like, I'm not getting into that. Or if it's already in the water and you see that there's water inside the boat, you're like, I don't think we should take this one out. And so a leaky boat says there's no integrity in the boat. And we don't want to follow someone. A lot of times we don't be associated with someone whose integrity is leaking. We wouldn't get into a leaky boat. Why would we want to follow someone who has leaky integrity? And that's a huge issue in our country and in our community and in our families right now, because everybody is trying to define the truth the way they want to define it. And truth is truth. Truth is not relative. And the thing about a boat, and I just found this out recently, but on the back of a boat, there's the hull of the boat right here. And you know what? And this hull, the length of the hull determines how much weight that the boat can sustain without sinking. And so the longer the hull, the more the weight that the boat can sustain. And here's what's interesting about that. We were created to be able to withhold a certain amount of weight in our lives. And when we exceed the amount of weight, the trouble, the burdens, the worries, the anxiety that we're capable of doing, what happens? We sink. But God can handle an immeasurable amount of weight and concern and anxiety and stress. And we're built not to hold on to that ourselves, but to say, there's some of this that I can kind of work through with the Lord, but He can handle everything. And what if we build our integrity based on our relationship with Him? So David says in Psalm 15, this is King David, and he's writing about what does it mean to be a person of integrity. And this is what he says. O Lord, who shall sojourn in your tent? Who shall dwell on your holy hill? In other words, who is it that can be in this close relationship with God? And he says, this is the way this works. He says, he who walks blamelessly and does what is right and speaks truth in his heart. You know what that is? Integrity. Who does not slander with his tongue and does no evil to his neighbor, nor takes up a reproach against his friend. You know what that is? That's integrity. In whose eyes a vile person is despised, but who honors those who fear the Lord, who swears to his own hurt and does not change. Integrity. Who does not put out his money in interest and does not take a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things shall never be moved. That's integrity. It's being a person whose behavior lines up with their beliefs. That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about integrity. How do we know we've got it? How do we know we've lost it? And how do we get it back? You know, it's easy to spot a lack of integrity in someone, right? I mean, let's just be honest with one another for a minute. I mean, let's talk politicians for just a minute. They'll say one thing and do another. And we go, how dare you? You said this, that's the reason I voted for you, but then you didn't do it. Or they lie. And we go, how dare you? All that guy does is lie. If it's somebody that is not in your party, you go, hey, that guy's a liar. He can't be trusted. It's easy to spot a lack of integrity in someone. Or what about, how about this one? Preachers, pastors, ministers, church leaders. You go, how dare you do that? And we go, that's outside the bounds. You can't do that. No, that's wrong. Don't. And they say something, they do something, and they're dishonest. Their actions are different than what they're saying. You know, it's the whole deal. If you can't live it, preach it. It's easy to spot, isn't it? A lack of integrity. And that's why integrity is really important. Or maybe, you know, in your family, you know, your spouse says something and does something differently. Or, you know, somebody at work says they'll turn something in on time and they don't. Or they take credit for your work. That's a lack of integrity. We can spot integrity in other people's lives and we go, here's a lack of integrity. But so often we miss the lack of integrity in our lives. We're so busy looking at other people. So what about if we would work on our integrity first, and then our lives could be an example to the people around us? What if we were to do something like that? All right, looks like it's floating, like there's no leaks in it. That tells me there's some structural integrity in it. I can trust it. So I'm gonna put my weight in this kayak and go for a ride.
Hey, thanks again for watching Mosaic. We are so glad that you're here. I wanted to interrupt for a second to invite you to join in on our 21 days of prayer and fasting. We started this back on January the 10th, but that doesn't mean you can't jump in right now. Find something to fast from and, man, commit to praying over the next few days to the end of this month in January, all right? Also, you can go to southcrest.church/21 days and find a prayer guide there. And each day is there, it's numbered, and so you can follow along with us as we pray for the remainder of this time. Also, we have revival nights happening every Thursday in the month of January, right here at our Noonan campus at 7 o'clock, okay? Revival nights, Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. You're invited. Come out. Man, we're going to worship, we're going to pray together, and we're going to seek God's face, and it's going to be an amazing time together. So, do those two things with us. We would be so happy. Now, hey, let's get back into this episode. Hope you enjoy.
So what's the big deal about integrity? What's the big deal about it, really? Well, here's the thing. You know, the more of a person of integrity you become, the closer you get to God, because God is the perfect model of integrity. There's nothing about him that is wrong. There's nothing about him that is evil. But in every way, God is good in everything. He's a great example of integrity for us. Here's another thing about it. When you're a person of integrity, you know what happens is that you naturally begin to make wise choices because you have new behaviors. The behaviors are lining up with your beliefs, and you become a person who makes wise choices. And people say, hey, how can I solve this situation? What would you advise me to do? And it's because you're beginning to make a real difference in what's going on in their life because you're able to make wise choices. Here's another thing that happens. You get peace in your life. You know what I'm talking about? When you lay down your head at night on your pillow to go to sleep, you can relax because you're not going, man, I wish I hadn't done that today. I wish I hadn't, fudged the numbers on my expense report. I wish that I had not talked that way to my coworker today. I wish that I had not cheated on my homework when I turned it in this morning. I hope I don't get caught. You've got all kinds of things that are good that begin to happen to you. And here's the fourth thing, is that you begin to gain influence because people begin to look at you and say, you know what? That's the kind of person I want to be. Because we don't want to follow cheats and liars and people who are lazy, who do one thing, say something else, people who are thieves. We want to follow people of integrity. That's what we want to do. Those are the kind of people that we want to follow. Now, when you're a person who has a lack of integrity, you know what we call that? We call it a hypocrite. That's right. You know where that comes from? That comes from Greek actors. And Greek actors, what they would do is they would have a mask on a stick, and they would put the mask in front of their face, and they would pretend to be someone else. And at the end, they would say, oh, this is who I really am. That's where the hypocrite comes from. And there are some people who pretend to be honest, and then you find out that they're not honest. Some people that pretend to be dependable, and then you find out that they're not dependable. And nobody wants to be around a person like that. And so you've got to ask yourself, hey, what is my integrity worth? So if you cheat on a test, you know what that means? That's what your integrity is worth. If you put a resume together for a new job and you are dishonest on your resume, you know what that means? That tells you how much your integrity is worth. How about when you exaggerate about something, right? Or how about when you buy some clothes but you don't tell your spouse about it for a couple months, and then they say, hey, where do these clothes come from? And you say, well, although I've had them for a couple months, what you really say is, oh, I've had them for a while. But that was your plan all along. And by the way, that's probably not a good thing to do, right? But there are all kinds of ways that we say, hey, my integrity is not worth a whole lot because we try and cheat or lie or steal our way into something. And here's the thing. Job, a guy in the Bible, man of tremendous integrity. He lost everything he had. He lost his spouse, he lost his children, he lost his family, his home, his wealth, lost everything. And he has some friends come around and say, hey, Job, you know what you should do? You should turn your back on God. And here's what Job says, no, I'm not going to do that because I want my beliefs to line up with my behavior. And in Job 27, he says, no, I'm not going to change my integrity because my integrity is founded on my belief in God. And you gotta have something to anchor your integrity to. You can't just say, I'm going to do integrity the way that I want to do it on my terms and the way that I think is right. But no, you've got to have a standard to tie it to. And that standard that we tie our integrity to, that is the same for everybody, is what God's truth is in our lives.
Hey, my name's Jim, and I've been in sales all my life. And, I know that sometimes early in a sales career and you're chasing that number and you're trying to be the very best for your company, you might really get toward that line of crossing the line of integrity versus enthusiasm. And a couple of times early in my career, I believe I probably made that mistake. But now I've learned through age and experience that in order to be able to put my head on my pillow at night, I got to treat people right. I got to do what's best for them, and I can't have them questioning my trustworthiness in what I do in my business. When I'm working with a client, if I mislead them on the smallest little detail, they could get stuck somewhere in the world that they don't want to be. And that's really not a good thing for either one of us, because now when they come back home and I want to have a conversation with them about salvation, they're probably not going to trust me because I've misled them before, and they know that. So we have to live with integrity every day and treat other people that we do business with or that we meet on the street as if they're our family members, and make sure that when we do want to talk to them about everlasting life, they're open to listening to us. The same thing's true in our families. If I want my wife to trust me and my children to trust me, and for my children to learn to be honest, trustworthy people, they've got to see it from us, from their parents and their grandparents on a daily basis. The Bible is scattered with the term integrity and with a test of people that are having to put their integrity on the line. Even Christ himself was tested on the mountaintop when Satan said, "You can have all of this if you'll just basically cross the line." And Christ passed the test, and he passed the test for us. And now, we can live our lives and testify to others, knowing that we have the integrity inside us to help them believe us. That's why integrity is important to me.
See, here's the struggle with integrity, is that I think we're the most entitled generation in the history of the United States. We think that everybody owes us something. And here's the problem with entitlement. When you're entitled, you never think you're wrong. And it's so incredible to get trapped up in entitlement. It feels so good and it feels wonderful because you think, hey, I'm at the top of the world. But you know what happens is we become people who don't have any integrity. And entitled people, what we do is we determine, hey, what's right for me may not be right for you, but that's okay. Because it feels good for me, and if it feels good for me, that's what I'm going to do. It's just that simple. So if you are beginning to realize today, next week, a year from now, that you are losing some of your integrity, how do you get it back? How do you get your integrity back? Well, let me give you 3 things real quick, all right? Number 1, get to know Jesus. The more that you know him, not know about him, but the more that you know him, the more that you will grow in integrity, and the better off that you will be. The next thing, number 2, is when you realize that you've shown a lack of integrity, go to the people that you've shown a lack of integrity to and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, will you forgive me? When my youngest son was about 3 years old, we were out shopping somewhere, and there was a little car that he wanted. And so my wife and I told him that he couldn't have that little car. And so he said, okay, and we left. And we got in the car and we put him in his car seat and noticed that there was something in his pocket and said, hey, Jonathan, what is that? And he reached into his pocket and he said, that car. And we said, Jonathan, we told you couldn't have that car. And so he was like, but I want it. And so my wife said, no, you can't do that. So I stayed there with our other children, and she took him back to the store, and he went into the store and he went over to the manager and said, I took this car. I should not have taken it. That was wrong of me. Will you forgive me? And he learned that lesson very early on. And that's a lesson that works for every single one of us. When we know we've shown a lack of integrity, whether we're 3 years old or 43 years old, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? It's a huge opportunity for us. And then one last thing that I want to share with you is simply this. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. That's what Jesus said to do. It's okay. Don't worry about trying to find a way out of something or make people think better of you. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And those things will help you restore your integrity and be the kind of person worth following.
Oh, just one word, you calm the storm that surrounds me. Just one word, the darkness has to retreat. Just one touch, I feel the presence of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes are open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. And just one word, you heal what's broken inside. Just one word, and you revive every dream. Just one touch, I feel the power of heaven. And just one touch, my eyes are open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, there's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like His power. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, 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 oh.
Well, that wraps up this week's episode on integrity. We really hope that it challenged you and it impacted you and it pointed you in the right direction. And it doesn't matter how many times you've screwed up in the past, you can choose to live with integrity today, right? Today, moving forward, let's all commit to living a life of integrity, a life that's trustworthy. And so that you and I, man, when we lay our heads on the pillow at night, we can know that today I lived a life that was full of integrity, all right? Hey, if you have any further questions about integrity or your life or a relationship with God, whatever it might be, shoot us an email at hello@southcrest.church. Myself or one of the pastors would love to get in contact with you and help you with whatever it is you're dealing with. That's what we're here for. We're here for you, and we would love to help. And as always, man, we are grateful that you tuned in, and we can't wait to see you next time. Hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you later.